Welcome to the Longevity's Welding channel. I'm Tim Roble. On today's tips and tricks, I'm going to talk about something that I see a couple times a year in the shop. That's fixing some type of bicycle frame. First thing we'll need to do is determine what is the material composition and go from there. So we'll do a quick look on this, and it's a 7000 series aluminum. So that's the first identifying factor that we're going to have to factor in. And then simply what I do from there, I just do a Google search and type in what welding rod do I use to weld a 7000 or a 7075 aluminum weld fitment. I'd like to touch briefly on inspection techniques. As you can see right through here, we have the crack, and that's first noticeable as we start to see the powder coat starting to lift. Be our first signs, and we'll actually have a little bit of accumulation of dust and grease that gets built up around the area. So when the client has the bike in, we'll want to quickly prep it and look for other cracks. Why we're going to weld up one, we might as well weld up another. Now starts the work. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to locate the end of the crack with a center punch, and then I'll simply just peen it right there. Now that we have our hole punched, I've selected a drill bit that basically will drill through the end of the crack, and basically what we're trying to do is stop a shear plane there. Now we have the end of the crack stop drilled, we'll start our prep on the weld. You can see here where I've prepped it, and sometimes when you use a flapper disc or something, it'll actually smear the aluminum and you'll lose your line. So what I like to do before I start sanding is I take a file and kind of just do a nice little V trough in there, and that'll identify where the crack is, and I'll take that down past the weld bead into the parent metal and kind of V it out a little bit. And then here again we see our hole where we've stopped the crack. So basically I'm going to come in here, put some heat, and run right along. And I did a Google search. I found about 5 different sites that said for the 7005 aluminum, a good rod to use for that would be the 5356. So that's what I'm going to go with. And I'm not going to take this bike back apart and go send it in and have it heat treated. So 5356 is actually a good choice for this. The unit I'm going to be using for this is the Tigweld 200 AC/DC. I'm going to be welding in AC, and you can kind of just take a quick look across the board and see what my setup is. And I'm going to be flowing about 15 cubic feet per hour on the flow regulator. I'm using a 2% serrated tungsten, 3/32 in size, and I am using the gas lens that allows me just to extend my tungsten out a little more and get a nice non-turbulent flow out. Probably the hardest thing on this project was getting a proper torch angle and rod angle welding around the camera. I have to stop here in a minute and reposition, and still wasn't a great setup, but I wanted you guys to be able to see what it looked like welding this. I'm coming in, I don't have a ton of heat. What I'm trying to do right here is somewhat preheat the aluminum. I want to go in a little colder and not blow away the material and run into problems. So I came in, worked my way up through this, and got a nice bead going and welded past that hole. Made sure that I saw the rod go down into where the hole was, and welded just slightly past it. And what I did for a finish on this is I ended up taking another 2 passes along just to kind of build up with where we already had the failure. Thank you for watching Longevity's Welding channel. I hope you've enjoyed the tips and tricks. I'm Tim Roble, and I'll catch you here next time.